The program that they were interested in at the Docent Symposium was what we do here in our museum. It's very special. It's a one work, 1 hour program, and it's where docents educate docents. I know what I forgot, my glasses. Sandy, could you hand them out of my... Sure. God. That should be... Thanks, sweetie.
Sure. There you go.
I'm not used to wearing them, that's the problem. In the disturbing 1953 Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, books are burned so the ignorance of society could not be challenged by the knowledge books held. To preserve the enlightened world that learning embodies, individuals became the books, memorizing and reciting word for word so history would not be lost. It is a harrowing metaphor for why we must care about knowledge. And in the art world and the museum community, the docents are the repository and the voice of enlightenment. Docents know art is the light that illuminates knowledge. What new skills and knowledge must the 21st century docent have to confront issues such as shorter attention spans, competition for time by technology? Brains are changing, so how will we expand our abilities to grow with the times and keep our purpose relevant and necessary for the future, and how people experience art? The Columbus Museum of Art faces this challenge head-on and encourages docents who are already well educated to expand their knowledge base and touring skills in a program called One Work, 1 Hour. Docents whereby educating docents. What if I told you is a phrase we use to invite curiosity and wonder about works of art and how to have an experience that you remember. John Berger gives the example of just how a bit of extra information can change the entire viewer's response. When we look at this painting, how many of you know the history about this one? That this is the very last painting that Van Gogh painted? See, when you just look at that painting, you're really struck by its beauty and the energy of it, and it just kind of forebodes something in your heart, doesn't it? Kind of feel something? His whole point is that that information, just looking at the painting and then telling you, this is the last painting Van Gogh painted, it changes something in your mind, I think. The One Work, 1 Hour program has goals. The first goal is to define the difference between looking and seeing. I have created this distinction to illustrate what I mean. You are meeting someone at the airport. People are everywhere, and you're looking, scanning the faces, but what happens when you see that person? Can you feel the difference in your brain? You feel it? Mm-hmm. It is a cognitive shift in the brain. You get it. So that is the first step to shift from the looking to the seeing and what that means. You are in a different state of mind, like the line from the song Amazing Grace, I was blind, but now I see. The seeing is where the questions and the wondering initiate and new ideas, curiosity begins to rise up, and you are captured. Conversations, comparisons, readjusting, expanding your mind. It feels wonderful. Why? Because you have been wondering, thinking, and this experience is what art should be, an experience you reflect on and remember. The famous art educator Dewey said, we are happiest when we are fully engaged. Do you agree with that? Mm-hmm. The One Work, 1 Hour program was created to help docents and therefore the public they tour to experience what it is to be fully engaged with art. The One Work, 1 Hour program began in 2009 when our 1931 museum was closed for several years for renovation, and we needed programs to keep the docents and the public engaged. The museum actually allowed carefully guarded original works of art to travel to the neighborhoods and suburbs and different communities to have a one work, 1 hour session. For example, my first one work, 1 hour presentation was in Westerville on The Wedding by Sandy Skoglund, an installation piece commissioned by our museum in 1994. The gallery floor was coated with orange marmalade. I don't know which gallery it was that this happened in our museum. I wish I knew which gallery. But anyway, they covered the entire floor with orange marmalade and the walls with strawberry jam. There are 300 silver roses that Skoglund has made. You know, this is when photography is starting to come into its own, that it is art that can be in a museum. Because Skoglund's work is always an installation. It has to be photographed so it can be remembered. So we have this fabulous photograph of this particular work of art, kind of photo surrealism. Our director, Nanette, said the smell of the jam was overwhelming. Oh. So we have this wonderful photograph of this work. And in that session with the public and docents, we had wonderful conversations about societal pressures to marry, relationships, the honest innermost fears and being fearless to make such a commitment, how Skoglund visually makes us feel tentative and why. We always have questions as part of our One Work, 1 Hour program that the docents can use. And this particular one, a couple of my questions was, how different would the effect of this if it were in black and white, the photograph? Yeah, see how the color changes this? And what about that cake, people? Oh. And another question I asked was, how does this work of art grab you or not? Explain. So you can imagine, we could have an all-day conversation on this piece, couldn't we? It's just so interesting. I served red velvet cake afterwards. We all had red dye number 4 running down our chins. And the men with beards were fabulous. I find, for me, just a little bit of information can make an impression that stays in my head and makes me approach art always with something special, I feel. Personally, when I learned of the inspiration for the Art Nouveau movement, I felt my pupils dilate. It sprung from such a simple concept. We look up, we look down, we look right, we look left. Art Nouveau breaks all those stops and instead takes us on a visual thrill ride of moving without stopping, following curvaceous lines, undulating and spinning. Our eyes are thrilled, our senses awake as we joyride our imaginations. The dancer who was filmed moving her scarves in circles and figure eights inspired this Art Nouveau movement. This is when someone can actually take a photograph of something happening, and it can be now a memory that you can see. And I just wanted you to know that we do have a lithograph of this dancer in our present post-impressionist exhibition by Maurice Denet. And you'll notice that it's just a little lithograph, but you can see. But what a difference the technology, how it changes our lives and how much it changes art. We enjoyed very much visiting the Taft Museum and are so pleased you've come to visit today. Your city, Cincinnati, has many famous artists. I thought you might enjoy experiencing one of our local artists who has also gained national appreciation. It's also a good example of when I talk about looking and then seeing. This particular piece by George Bellows is one that completely helps you cross that road when you're touring. I know you can't tell. I did ask the docents in Montreal to look at it, and they had fun. Remember, Anne, they were trying. Will you believe me if I tell you there are over 30 people in this painting? The more you look at it, the more you see. You have to go down on the river's edge. You have to walk through the park. There are people tucked around on this. And that for years, I looked at the painting and didn't even notice what might be fireworks up there. I do know the neighborhood, and I believe that the great Houdini lived up there on that hill somewhere. The reason I want you to know about George Bellows is he was raised just over here on Rich Street. His father came from Brooklyn, an architect, and moved here. His first wife and daughter that were deceased, and he remarried a much older woman, and much to everybody's surprise, George was their issue. The father was a very strict Methodist, and so little George had to sit downstairs in the parlor with his mother and his Aunt Lucy, and he'd have architectural paper, and they let him draw to amuse him, because his father liked to spend the day up in his studio, up in his study, to contemplate spiritual thoughts and just make a kind of a special day for himself. George, because he was a child of older parents, the mother used to dress him in little white suits, like little Lord Fauntleroy. So I think that explains, when he went to Ohio State, how he wanted to prove that he was definitely a manly man. And he did get what do athletes get when they I forget what you call it, but yeah, in all the sports, he did all of them. He was a tall, imposing, strong-looking man. And what he did do, which is kind of interesting, as a senior at Ohio State University, he forgot to take his final exams. His father forgave him and did give him a stipend, because he was encouraged to go to New York City and join with Robert Henry and, as docents, the Ashcan School. And George, this was fabulous for him. And it's fabulous for all of us, because it's a big change. Just like being an opera singer. Oh, you must sing in Milan, you must da-da-da, you have to go somewhere else. And Henry and his people say, no, we have plenty of things. As a painter, you don't have to go to Giverny. You can paint here. Why don't you paint what we have where we live? And he is famous for these fabulous New York paintings. And this one is where he used to romance Emma, who was also in the art school. It took him 5 years, but she finally said yes. So they had a really very beautiful marriage. George was becoming more and more, he was selling his paintings and doing well. He even built the house that they lived in. He had a pain kind of in the middle, and he just ignored it, like for a year. And in December, he was working in 1925. He was working in his studio, pulling up some plaques from the studio floor, and his appendix burst. And he was rushed to the hospital, and he died. So it was very, very upsetting to everyone. He was only 43 years old. I want to show you, I'm trying to give you something today so you have a little bit of a hook, so you remember George, all right? Because I remember him because of this tragedy, quite frankly. It's partially that. Here's his beautiful wife, Emma. They used to love to sing songs like, well, from that period, it would be something like, "My desert is calling," the McDonald and those kind of love songs. And they loved to play the piano and sing love songs together. So there is a gorgeous painting of Emma. You can see where she is quite beautiful. Now, Emma was a Christian Scientist, so some people said she's the reason he died, because he didn't go to the doctor. Well, that is simply not true. He just, how men and women can be about such things. So he ignored it, and of course it cost him his life. Emma, so I was inspired to read, I'm going to read a poem to you that I wrote, because I was so sad about this, okay? And I call it Emma's Lament. Why, George, did you ignore the crippling pain in your gut? Was it your athletic pride, stiff upper lip old chap? Real men don't have pain. Don't succumb to weakness. You love competition. Look how you fought for me. 5 years of patience, but you won me as your prize. I gave my heart to you, my belief in you so invincible. Did I make you afraid to say, surgery frightens me? Was it the surgeon's knife being put into the fog, perhaps to stay there, expectations of recovery not promised. So you gambled with your pain, and the morning it exploded, your strong temple of flesh turned cold, and I felt such hot fright. Why, George? I'm now alone to play the widow's game, to raise our daughters. All the music has stopped. The black piano mourns. I sit alone in our beautiful house built by your talented hands, beloved hands that held me. You made art so true and lovely. You will be remembered, George. I dedicate myself. So many memories still living on canvas, proof you, we existed. Will voyeurs stare and wonder too, of pain ignored? Why, George? So that's why today I want the docents to go up. I want you to go up and see some of the Bellows paintings. The ones in New York are absolutely incredible, and you're just not going to believe how many people he could put in a painting, hidden or otherwise, to notice. So do you understand why I love George? Will you love him too now? Thank you. So this is how Emma kept her promise. She gave this gorgeous painting that he did of her in her purple dress. And she gave the painting to a museum in Texas. Now it's actually in LA. But the point is, when he died, he'd never been abroad. So by this act, she was able to show what he was doing, and it's now across the country. Now, truly, have some of you heard of George Bellows? Okay, good. Well, that makes me feel good. So you see, she did her job, and it's really beautiful. When the Armory Show of 1913 came, George had never gone abroad, and when he looked at those paintings, you get to see what people do across the pond. He said, I need to take more time, because he was very restless, experimenting all the time, as you know, fabulous in his lithographs. So sometimes if you get to see a painting of Emma with the daughters, look, that's not in our collection, but the way he paints their dresses, the detail, if you compare it to the portrait of his mother and then later, I mean, it's just so superb what he does. So she kept her word, and I thank her for that. Another quick thing is, Philippe Montebello came to visit us from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. By the way, Gertrude Stein visited us in the 30s. She said we were like a little miniature Metropolitan Museum of Art. So do you remember Philippe Montebello? Oh my God, he was so dashing, didn't you think? I had a terrible crush on him. So when he came, Nanette had him walk the galleries, and she asked him the question she always asks. Okay, if you could have one work of art from our collection, what would you like to have? Snap, the Degas. The Degas painting, as many of you probably do know, most people think of Degas with the ballets and that sort of thing. But the truth is, he was very mean to plein air painters, and he poo-pooed them all the time. And it was after his death, and he would go to St. Valery, and this is where this is a scene from, where the Sorsum is. And you'll notice Corot and all these other painters would go there to paint the river. It was a wonderful place to do plein air painting. But do you see it? Do you see anything like that in this painting? And furthermore, if you use this painting and you went to St. Valery to say, I want to see this. Well, guess what? He's a bad boy. He could deliberately moved all the architecture around. So it doesn't exist the way he has it here. I don't think I cut things down because in Montreal it was for an hour. I don't think I have. Okay. So what is this all about? This One Work, 1 Hour program. I want docents to stay in love with their mission, to stay fresh and excited, pass their love and enthusiasm to everyone they tour, to feel more confident. The One Work, 1 Hour program, I believe, feeds our hunger for more information about art and artists, helps us to formulate new questions and challenge, new questions that challenge. We cross-pollinate each other, and our community is stronger for it. We thrive together. I did not see any other presentations at the National Docent Symposium that included a program created for and run exclusively by docents, for docents. One Work, 1 Hour is a very special program. I have a handout that gives all the specificities of organizing and running a 1 Work Hour program, and it is also posted on the National Docent Symposium, but the little pack just a little bit to the, that's mine right there. The audience especially enjoyed the video I created to showcase our perspective, and Jess Sims did a fabulous job producing it, and the music he selected is perfect. Great fun shooting it. So Steve, if you'll do the video now.
Bonjour, Montreal, from the Columbus Museum of Art in Columbus, Ohio. Today we are sharing with you a very successful program, 1 Work, 1 Hour, where docents educate docents. An important part of the program is the What If I Told You thinking routine. How does the What If I Told You thinking routine work? Let's hear from some of our CMA docents.
What if I told you that something can be big because it is large, or big because it is important? What is big about this artwork?
You want to see this today.
What if I told you that this sculpture holds the breath of the artist? What would happen if that breath were removed?
What if I told you that the woman who appears in the lower left of this painting might be Artemisia Gentileschi herself? Why do you think she included herself in this painting?
What if I were to tell you that Picasso has a special message in this painting for his sweetheart, Eva? What other messages can you find in this painting?
What if I told you that this little teapot can tell us a lot about sculpture? How can this little teapot help us understand this work? We use the What If I Told You routine to encourage our visitors' curiosity and creative thinking. We see, we think, and we wonder together. Come and visit the Columbus Museum of Art. We would love to see you. Adieu and bonne chance.
Is that Hollywood calling? The beautiful voice you hear is Bob Bernard, our docent back there. Bob, you should stand up so they know who you are. Back there. And also, Marianne is here. And of course, you're also so anxious. Some of the docents that are in it, they did a wonderful job. I don't know if did some of you read the book, The Madonnas of Leningrad? It's as you know, it's a wrenching story about how the docents trying to preserve when World War II and the Germans are headed towards the Hermitage and what to do. And I say, like the Madonnas at Leningrad, that inspiring book by Deborah Dean about Russian docents who could tour the art in the Hermitage with all the passion possible when the gallery walls were in fact bare. It is a standard we docents aspire. We carry the torch for art and its experience. It is our calling. Art itself is perhaps our most necessary nourishment, a critic wrote. And I believe our 1 Work, 1 Hour program does just that. We nourish one another by sharing this passion. Carry on, and thank you.